In the hip hop era, the term rep your city was used to incite pride for one's hometown and the loyalty one had to it. Although the term isn't used nearly as much as it was back in the day, you can still see and feel the pride a person has for their hometown when you talk to them or when a sports team from their city is playing. What if I told you spiritually there's only two cities? That's what we're going to talk about today. All right, let's get into it. I honestly never understood the pride people have in their hometown because I grew up as a military brat. And although I was born overseas to two American parents in Wiesbaden, Germany, I don't feel a loyalty to that place or any of the many places I lived since then. And that's just me, though. People take their hometown serious. Thing is, as children of Yahuwah, we're in this world, but no longer of it. Yerushalayim is now our home, and that would make this world Babel or Babel. Those are the only two cities that truly exist. So Babylonians rep Babel, and Yasharal reps Yerushalayim. And what does this look like? So we do this through our actions, our speech/language, our heart posture, our thought processes, and the law. So let's talk about Babel's law summed up. So if you think of the summation of Babel's law, it is do what thou wilt, which is the whole of the law. Pretty much hedonism. And the thing about it is when you actually look up that quote, Google will tell you that it's not hedonism, but Google is part of Babylonia, so we're not even concerned with what Google says, because that literally is the definition of hedonism, right? Because hedonism is actually a doctrine that pleasure or happiness is the sole and chief good in life. The second definition is it's a way of life based on or suggesting the principles of hedonism is a doctrine of devils. So it literally says that it's not hedonism, but according to the definition of hedonism, it actually really is hedonism because, again, do what thou wilt, which is the whole of the law. So if you are only doing the things that you want to do, you're taking part in pleasure and happiness, right? Which is hedonism. You see how quickly the world tries to lie to you? Go back and listen to the podcast, You Are What You Eat. And that will literally let you know that you need to be listening to the right voice and feeding yourself with the right voice. But anyway, the quote, do what thou wilt, which is the whole of the law, is a religious philosophy, of Thelema, which is founded by Aleister Crowley. And its meaning is to follow your true will as a path to self-fulfillment in harmony with the universe. That should be a major red flag if you're a child of Yahusha. Because didn't Yahusha tell us to pray, your will be done on earth as it is in the heavens? When speaking to Yahuwah, that's what we're supposed to pray. His will be done. We're not in harmony with the universe. And aren't we supposed to die daily? Isn't it no longer us who lives, but Hamashiach who lives in us? So you can already see off the rip that this is in complete contrast to what Yahuwah taught us through his son Yahusha and reminds us of through his Ruach HaKadosh. Okay? And Crowley believed everyone has a unique purpose in the universe they need to realize and fulfill. Sound familiar? Think of this when people mention receiving wisdom, teachings, or blessings from the universe. This is meant to be a spiritual quest of self-discovery and growth, harmony with the universe. It also sounds very similar to what Yahuwah has his children doing, only our identity comes from him. Those who find their life shall lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake shall find it. And again, let's not forget, and let me remind you again, it's also no longer us who live, but Mashiach who lives in us. And now the doctrine of Thelema does throw in some seemingly ethical values, like not harming others unless they harm you. However, this is all from the mind of an occultist slash black magician. He literally likened himself to a prophet meant to guide humanity into Aeon of Horus. Whereas Yahuwah tells us if someone strikes us on the cheek, we're to turn to them the other, which is not a popular saying in Yahuwah's kingdom, but I mean, it's still the truth. Crowley was also admired by Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, whose doctrine stems from Thelema. And many of the principles and statements of this church seem ethical at first glance, but are truly rooted in false humility, and self-worship. And I've actually gone on to the website of the Church of Satan and looked at the principles and the statements. And again, at first glance, they don't seem bad, but you got to remember the whole reason why they're doing these things is because they are worshiping self. Because a true Satanist doesn't believe in the being of Satan. They believe that Satan is a concept and that Satan just represents self, right? So they're actually worshiping themselves. You see what I'm saying? That is a true Satanist, not people that are out here hail Satan and all this other stuff. So when someone behaves in alignment with this doctrine and these principles, even if they're unaware of them, they're citizens of Babel or Babel or Babylonia, whichever one you want to call it by. And with the lifestyle Crowley lived, it's clear he learned these principles specifically from fallen Malachiyam or angels. Now, here is the law of Yerushalayim or Jerusalem summed up. The first is you shall love Yahuwah Eluah with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. The second is you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Every aspect of Yahuwah's law, statutes, and commandments and judgments can be traced back to these two things. And these two commandments are the summation of the 10. The first, 1 through 5, is love Yahuwah. And then 5 through 10 is love your neighbor. The reason why 5 is mentioned twice is because in the 5th commandment, it says honor your father and your mother. Now, Yahuwah is also our father. So that's the reason why you can attribute it to one of the commandments that tells us to love him as well as your earthly father and your earthly father and mother. So it kind of toggles back and forth. But to sum up the 10, you would just say love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, and mind, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. And the thing with this is, out of the 10 commandments, the whole of the law comes. And again, the 10 commandments are summed up into 2 commandments, but the entire law, because I know there's been some people that are like, there's 613 commandments. That may be true, but I can guarantee you that all of them stem from the 10, which is summed up in the 2. All right. So listen at this. Deuteronomy 14:2 says, for you are a Kadash people unto Yahuwah Eluah, and Yahuwah has chosen you to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. So we're supposed to be set apart. We're not supposed to be like any other person, nation, peoples on the face of the earth. The law is different in Yerushalayim than it is in Babel or in Babal. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you shall call them to mind among all the nations whither Yahuwah Eluah has driven you, and shall return unto Yahuwah Eluah, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command you this day, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your soul, that then Yahuwah Eluah will turn your captivity and have compassion upon you, and will return and gather you from all the nations whither Yahuwah Eluah has scattered you. If any of yours be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will Yahuwah Eluah gather you, and from thence will he fetch you, and Yahuwah Eluah will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it, and he will do you good and multiply you above your fathers. And Yahuwah Eluah will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, to love Yahuwah Eluah with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. And Yahuwah Eluah will put all these curses upon your enemies and on them that hate you, which persecute you. And you shall return and obey the voice of Yahuwah and do all his commandments which I command you this day. And Yahuwah Eluah will make you plenteous in every work of your hand, in the fruit of your body, and in the fruit of your cattle, and in the fruit of your land for good. For Yahuwah will again rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your fathers, if you shall hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah Eluah to guard his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the Torah. And if you turn unto Yahuwah Eluah with all your heart and with all your soul. For this commandment which I command you this day, it is not hidden from you, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that you should say, we shall go up for us. Who shall go up for us to heaven and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? Neither is it beyond the sea, that you shall say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very nigh unto you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. See, I have set before you this day life and good, and death and evil, and that I command you this day to love Yahuwah, to your Eluah, to walk in his ways, and to guard his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that you may live and multiply. And Yahuwah Eluah shall bless you in the land whither you go to possess it. But if your heart turn away, so that you will not hear, but shall be drawn away and worship other Elohim and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that you shall surely perish, and that you shall not prolong your days upon the land whether you pass over the Jordan to go to possess it. I call the heavens and the earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your seed may live, that you may love Yahuwah Eluah, and that you may obey his voice, and that you may cleave unto him, for he is your life, and the length of your days, that you may dwell in the land that Yahuwah swore 7 oaths unto your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Jacob, to give them. Let me go back to verse 19. I call the heavens and the earth to record this day unto you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life. I'm going to stop right there. So I just want to say that back then, during the time of Deuteronomy, with the Israelites, the place that Yahuwah was referencing was Jerusalem. For us, it's the renewed Jerusalem, or the renewed Jerusalem, okay? And you can read about the renewed Jerusalem in Revelation 21. But I want to emphasize verses 15 to 20 in chapter 30 of Deuteronomy. I already emphasized verse 19. So when we were told to choose life, he says, therefore choose life. That was a commandment to choose Yahusha. How do I know this? Because we learn in Yehukadan, John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, and 14, verse 6, that Yahusha is life. So when Yahuwah told us to choose life, he was telling us to choose Yahusha, who is also the tree of life mentioned in Revelation 22, 1 to 5. So when Adam and Hawa were in the garden, and there was a tree of life and a tree of knowledge of good and evil, the tree of knowledge of good and evil was Hashatan and his kingdom of darkness, and the tree of life was Yahusha. Yahuwah is literally telling us, choose life. It's an open book quiz. Have y'all ever have an open book test in school, in college, high school, middle school, whatever? You literally have a test, but you can go into the book and you can find out what the answer is, and you can write it down. It's kind of like a no-brainer. If you fail those tests, you just didn't care. You know what I'm saying? He's giving you an open book test. He's telling you to choose life. You know what I'm saying? And I can't remember where I read it. I want to say it's in Jeremiah. But I actually read something recently where it spoke about how the people actually chose death. It said that they didn't choose life. They chose death. I'm going to find that for you. Hold on one second. Yes, so it's actually Jeremiah or Yamayahu verse 3, but I'm going to read 1 to 3 so you can see what it says. At that time, says Yahuwah, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Yehuda and the bones of his princes and the bones of the priests and the bones of the prophets and the bones of the inhabitants of Yerushalayim out of their graves, and they shall spread them before the sun and the moon and the host of heaven, and whom they have loved and whom they have served and whom they have walked and whom they have sought and whom they have worshipped. They shall not be gathered nor be buried. They shall be for dung among the face of the earth. And death shall be chosen rather than life by all the remnant of them that remain of this evil family, which remain in all the places whither I have driven them, says Yahuwah Zaba'ath. So you see that there are people that choose death and not life, which is a direct disobedience to what Yahuwah told us. Yahuwah gave us an open book test. He said, I put before you life and death, and then he told us which was the correct answer. Choose life. Life is Yahusha. Yahusha is the life, the truth, the life, the way. You know what I'm saying? And he's also the light, and that light is the life of men, right? He is who we were told to choose. So when you obey Yahuwah, you're repping your city, Yerushalayim. And when you make a habit of disobeying Yahuwah, i.e. practicing lawlessness or being workers of iniquity, you're repping your city, Babal. So remember when Yahusha said, you are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Your speech, your actions, and thoughts all reflect which kingdom you belong to, because you will sound like the head of that kingdom, which is who teaches you. So if you sit at Yahusha's feet and you learn from him, that's who you will sound like. But if you sit at the feet of the fallen angels and you learn from them, that is who you will sound like. And you will believe the doctrine of do what thou wilt, which is the whole of the law. That's a complete and utter lie, and it completely goes against what Yahuwah told us. It can also sound like the law of Yahuwah is done away with. Those are the two things you'll hear in Babal. Do as thou wilt, which is the whole of the law, and the law of Yahuwah is done away with, which is basically just a repetition of each other. Because if the law of Yahuwah is done away with, then you can do what you want to, because that is the whole of the law. So, but it can sound both those ways. It's hedonism at its finest. All right. As usual, if you want to get in contact with me, you can reach me at replenishme@gmail.com, RIPLENISH, me@gmail.com. Much ahaba and shalom, and until next time.